Elvis was different from many people. Some might say he had a problem called ADHD, neurodevelopmental disorders of childhood. He couldn't sleep well his whole life, which was very hard for him. As a kid, a teenager, and an adult, he had trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. This might be why he started taking medicine. His life was very stressful because he was poor and moved a lot when he was young. All of this made him feel anxious and unable to sleep. Even though he had other health problems, none of them could explain why he couldn't sleep. Sleep is very important for our bodies to heal and feel good. If someone can't sleep, there might be a problem like a health, mental, or developmental issue. When Elvis was younger, he couldn't sit still and would fidget a lot. He would drum his fingers and move his leg all the time. This bothered the people around him, like Dixie's mother and his friend Rose. Elvis's constant moving made others feel uneasy. Elvis liked to sing, but he didn't always say he wanted to be a singer. He thought about other jobs too, like becoming a doctor or a policeman. His main goal was to stop his family from being poor. He tried to become an entertainer quietly, and it turned out to be a huge success that nobody could have predicted. Elvis worked hard and didn't just get lucky. He loved ballads and gospel music and sang them on the porch in the evenings. His drive to help his parents was what pushed him towards music. Elvis thought he might have to work hard just like his family did. When he let himself imagine a different future, he hoped to join a gospel singing group. His mom liked the Blackwood Brothers and he liked the Statesmen. In 1954, he tried out for a group called the Songfellows Quartet, but they told him he couldn't sing and let him go. After finishing high school, he wanted to be an electrician while working at Crown Electric. He also thought about marrying a girl named Dixie, but then a man named Sam Phillips and his record company, Sun Records, changed everything for Elvis. Sam Phillips was a very important person in Elvis's music career, even though he was only involved for a short time. They both loved music and came from poor backgrounds in the South. Sam had health problems as a child but believed he would grow up to be great, just like Uncle Silas told him. His father also taught him to be kind and expect great things from himself. Sam carried these beliefs into his work at a recording studio, where he tried to help his artists believe in themselves too. Elvis's music was unique and didn't fit any existing category. His guitarist, Scotty Moore, said that Sam Phillips, the person behind the music, had his own ideas. Sam wanted to help black and white artists, who were poor and didn't have many opportunities, by creating a new kind of music. He ran a recording studio called Sun Studio, which wasn't doing well before Elvis became famous. Sam was determined to find and share different sounds and recorded many black artists like Howlin' Wolf, Junior Parker, and B.B. King. In 1951, a song called Rocket 88 was recorded at Sun Studio, which is often seen as the first rock and roll song. Elvis might have been interested in music because of a man named Sam who recorded a unique group called the Prisonaries. They were different because they were 5 inmates who recorded a song called Just Walkin' in the Rain in a small studio in Memphis. Their story inspired Elvis to visit Sun Studio on Union Avenue. When he went there, Elvis paid to record 2 songs, My Happiness and That's When Your Heartache Begins. People think he did it as a gift for his mom, but he might also have wanted to hear how he sounded or for someone at Sun Records to hear him. A woman named Marion noticed Elvis and thought he was good-looking, and she remembered him as a possible ballad singer. Almost a year later, Sam Phillips asked to hear more from Elvis. Marion encouraged Sam to let Elvis come to the studio on June 26, 1954. At first, things didn't go well. Sam thought Elvis was very shy but also brave for coming. A few days later, Sam arranged a more casual meeting for Elvis at the house of a guitarist named Scotty Moore. That's where Elvis met Scotty and another musician named Bill Black. Scotty ended up helping Sam find talent. Scotty Moore and Bill Black were regular people with jobs. Scotty cleaned clothes and Bill fixed appliances. They also liked playing music. They met Elvis at a place called Sun Studio, but Elvis wasn't famous yet, so they both had their day jobs. Elvis had a unique style of dressing and looked different from others. When Scotty and Bill first met Elvis, they were more impressed by how many songs he knew, from different singers and styles. Scotty's wife thought Elvis had a good voice but was like other singers at that time. Scotty told their boss, Sam, about Elvis, and even though he didn't think Elvis's singing was very different, he suggested trying one more time in the studio. On July 5, 1954, Elvis tried recording again with his friends Marion, Sam, and Scotty. He was nervous and mostly sang slow songs. But then, during a break, Elvis played a blues song called "That's All Right" by Arthur Crudup. Scotty and Bill joined in and Sam started recording. This accidental moment was the start of rock and roll. Elvis had a special voice, Scotty played guitar in a unique way, and Bill could play the bass in a different style. Sam, the boss, just needed to record their sounds well. Instead of making Elvis's voice stand out too much, Sam mixed it with the music so it sounded like another instrument. Scotty explained this later. When they listened back to the recording, everyone was shocked. Bill Black said, "We couldn't believe it was us." Scotty Moore added, "It sounded raw and ragged. They were a singer, 3 instruments, and a producer, and that night they made something special. They knew it was different, but they didn't understand how big it would be. They went to sleep not knowing that their recording would start a new era in American music. All they knew was that it had been a good day." In 1954, something big happened in music, like a big bang. A disc jockey named Dewey Phillips played a new song called "That's All Right" by Elvis's friend Sam Phillips. People in Memphis loved it and the song played over and over again. Elvis's cousin Billy Smith remembered it was very different and exciting. Elvis was at the movies when his parents came to tell him his song was playing on the radio a lot. They were proud of him. Things changed quickly for Elvis. He signed a contract with Sun Records and brought 2 other musicians, Scotty Moore and Bill Black, with him. They made their own deal with Elvis, splitting the money 50-25-25, with Elvis getting the most since he was the singer. They played in the South and had small success, which they were happy with. Later, Scotty Moore became their manager and they traveled and performed a lot. In just 3 months, they were able to quit their day jobs and play music full-time. Sam Phillips, the record producer, traveled a lot too, working very hard. Before Elvis became famous, big music companies didn't care much about rock and roll. It was smaller labels like Sam's that helped spread the music. Elvis's first big songs were "That's All Right" and "Blue Moon of Kentucky." Some people didn't like his version of "Blue Moon of Kentucky" because it was different from the original country song by Bill Monroe. When Elvis played at the Grand Ole Opry, a famous country music event, the audience didn't like his style. But another show, the Louisiana Hayride, liked Elvis and his friends became regulars there. They even got a 1-year contract, and Elvis earned $18 per show while Scotty and Bill each got $12. Elvis and his group played a show called the Hayride more than 50 times in 2 years. They traveled a lot, going to different places like Texas, Mississippi, Missouri, and more. They didn't have the big highways we have now, so they drove on smaller roads. When people saw Elvis perform, they noticed he moved, sounded, and looked different from other singers. He had a unique style and energy that no one had seen before. Even though other singers like Bill Haley had great songs, they didn't have the same look as Elvis. People didn't know how to describe him, whether they were fans or not. Elvis was shy and stuttered, but he knew how to entertain people. He had a lot to learn, but he worked hard to make his performances great. His friend Lamar Fike remembered how Elvis would try different things on stage and figure out what worked. Elvis was also curious about the world and wanted to see more of it. Elvis was away from home, but he missed his mom, Gladys. However, he was excited about being on his own and wanted to help his parents. He felt responsible for his family and started sending money home to pay bills. At 19 years old, he was providing for his family for the first time, and even though he shared the money with his friends Scotty and Bill, it was still a lot more than his family had ever had. Elvis had a lot of energy and couldn't sleep much. This helped him keep going even with a busy schedule. His friends noticed that he would stay up all night after shows and pace around. It was hard to travel with him because he would be restless and want to talk all night. They had to find ways to calm him down so they could get some sleep during long car rides. Elvis's cousin Gene Smith eventually became his driver and also noticed how Elvis couldn't let anyone rest because he was so full of energy and nervous. Elvis started eating more meat, like cheeseburgers and milkshakes, because he could finally afford it. He gained some weight and grew a bit taller. He was getting close to turning 20. Maybe it was a late growth spurt, but it's more likely that he was making up for not having enough food when he was younger. Elvis, Scotty, and Bill traveled with a country group called the Browns. Maxine Brown, who was part of the Browns, remembered that they helped Elvis with things like cleaning his pink pants and buying him food. They ate a lot of bacon and tomato sandwiches all day long. Even though Elvis didn't have much money, he didn't seem to worry about it. Even as Elvis became famous with "That's All Right," he still wanted to be a gospel singer. He loved old-time gospel music and would sing hymns with his friends late at night. His mom also wanted him to be a gospel artist. Elvis and his friends' families were very close, and they would go to shows together and have dinner. Maxine Brown, a friend, also noticed that Elvis had trouble sleeping. He would sometimes stay at her house and sleep in her parents' room. When he was young, everyone in his family slept in the same room. Elvis had a hard time sleeping no matter where he was, only getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep at most. His mom said he couldn't sleep well at home either. When Elvis was younger and living a normal life, he could get by with just a few hours of sleep. Maybe he took short naps during the day. But as he became famous and his sleep problems got worse, it became harder for him. Many people, including Maxine and Scotty, noticed his insomnia before he started using prescription medication. This lack of sleep became a big issue for him. Elvis used to tour with other musicians like Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins. Johnny Cash remembered Elvis as a young man who loved cheeseburgers, girls, and his mom. In a movie about Johnny Cash's life, it's shown that Elvis gave pills, often called dope in the 1950s, to the other artists on the tour. However, Johnny Cash himself said he never saw any evidence of Elvis using drugs or alcohol, and Elvis always seemed clear-headed and pleasant around him. A man named Tom Perryman helped book Elvis for shared tours with a group called the Browns. Later, another man named Bob Neal became Elvis's second manager in 1955, taking 15% of Elvis's earnings. But then, a man called Colonel Tom Parker started to take a bigger part in Elvis's career. By March 1956, Colonel Parker officially became Elvis's manager, getting 25% of his earnings and covering all expenses. Colonel Parker helped Elvis achieve his dream of being able to support others. Tom Parker, who was not really a colonel or named Parker, was born in Holland in 1909 as Andreas Cornelis van Kijck. He left his home country and didn't talk to his family much after that. People wonder why he left and if he was involved in a crime. He changed his name and identity, hid his lack of citizenship, and joined the army. He didn't like paperwork because it could reveal his true identity. He never officially married his wife, Marie. After a fire destroyed important records, it was found that he was discharged from the army because of mental health issues. Despite this, he moved to the United States, changed his identity again, joined the military, but was later considered too mentally unfit to serve. Then, he became the manager of Elvis Presley, one of the biggest stars in the world. It's amazing how he found success in a new country with a new identity. There was a big snowstorm that helped everything go well for a man called the Colonel. He wasn't honest and had a fake title. People knew him as a trickster, which is why he called himself the Snowman. He liked to take people's money without them realizing it, leaving them happy but poorer. The Colonel started out in the carnival business, making ducks look like they were dancing to music. Later, he became the person in charge of famous country singers like Gene Austин, Eddie Arnold, and Hank Snow. In 1953, Eddie Arnold paid a lot of money to end his relationship with the Colonel, who then worked with Hank Snow for about a year and a half. After that, Hank didn't like the Colonel at all because the Colonel didn't treat him fairly when it came to a deal with Elvis Presley. The Colonel started a business with Hank, managing his career and setting up tours for country and rock and roll artists. Hank often paid for these tours himself. When Elvis joined some of these tours as an extra performer, he quickly became very popular. The Colonel saw that Elvis could make a lot of money and started booking more gigs for him. Eventually, the Colonel helped Elvis leave Sun Records and sign a deal with RCA. In 1955, a man named Sam Phillips, who helped Elvis's music career, was replaced by the Colonel. The Colonel had connections in New York that Sam didn't have. Elvis had some popular songs in 1954 and 1955 with Sun Records, but that label was too small to help him grow more. In November, Elvis signed with a bigger company called RCA, thanks to the Colonel. Elvis got $5,000 and bought his mom a pink Cadillac with it. Sam Phillips got $35,000 and used the money to pay off debts and invest in a new company called Holiday Inn, which was about starting hotels. Sam's secretary, Marion, said that the Colonel, Tom Parker, was trying very hard to convince Elvis's family to work with him. He quickly won over Elvis's dad, Vernon, who liked the idea of making money. But Elvis's mom, Gladys, didn't trust the Colonel and didn't want him to manage Elvis. She didn't like selfish people. The Colonel used a country singer named Hank Snow to help him get closer to the Presleys. Hank met with them many times to encourage them to work with the Colonel. The Presleys liked Hank Snow and felt comfortable with him. However, they might not have fully understood the contract they signed, which removed Hank Snow and Jamboree attractions completely. Hank Snow was surprised by this, but he never blamed Elvis. He remembered Elvis as a kind and talented man who left a lasting impact on the world.